Good afternoon, everybody. Thank you for coming. My name is Russell Bonanno. I'm the State Director for the Autism Program of Illinois. As you're probably aware, April is Autism Awareness Month. And normally during this month, we'd be celebrating what the network has been able to accomplish. We're a network of 4 university programs, 13 nonprofits, operating 19 centers across the state of Illinois, where in fiscal year 2014, we provided life-changing and critical services to over 15,000 residents of Illinois, residents that come from each of the 102 counties in this state. However, this year, instead of coming here to celebrate, we're here actually pleading for our lives. The Autism Program was one of the grants whose funding was suspended on Good Friday. As a result, we have no funding for the rest of this fiscal year. We've also been removed from the budget that's been proposed for fiscal year 16. This program without funding will not be able to continue. It's been suggested that fiscal year 16 is still open, could change. If funding is not returned in fiscal year 15, part of this network may not be able to survive. We are not an agency that maintains huge reserves. We operate and serve those in the community who most need services and who are least able to afford them. Because of this, the funding is necessary for continuation. We have several people here to talk today. Everybody's going to speak briefly, and then we'll be available to you for questions. First speaker I'd like to introduce is Jim Runyon, Executive Vice President of Easter Seals Central Illinois.
Thank you for being here. As Russ said, I'm Jim Runyon, Executive Director of Strategic Initiatives and Governmental Affairs for Easter Seals Central Illinois. We serve 28 counties across the center of the state. We are like everyone else standing here, members of the TAP service network. And we've been very proud to provide those services to needy families across central Illinois now for many years. We're particularly concerned about the loss of this state funding. And I just don't want to go too far into the weeds, but this is an important point for folks to understand. For children who are served through Medicaid, there is very little funding available for either diagnostic services or treatment services for their children. The wonderful thing about the TAP grant was that it allowed us to serve children regardless of their particular payer, be it private insurance or be it Medicaid or early intervention. It was the most flexible spending. Easter Seals has always prided ourselves, and we've been in existence here in central Illinois for 95 years. We've always prided ourselves on being able to provide our services to children regardless of their ability to pay or regardless of their payer source. TAP funds were essential for us in being able to keep that commitment to the families of central Illinois. With the loss of TAP funds, especially now during this last part of FY15, and as we look forward into 16, there will be a number of services that we will have to either limit or we will literally have to close down. One of the key sources of information for families across our region has been our family resource centers located in both our Peoria Center as well as our Bloomington Center. And they're at great risk now to have to be completely closed down. The other service that we provide across 42 counties in Illinois is our diagnostic service, a medical diagnostic for children with autism. This is a unique regional service, and even inside the TAP network is not offered at every single site because of its great expense and because of the inability to find key professionals to provide these services. So we literally serve 42 counties for this service. Again, it allows us, the TAP grant allows us to be able to serve children regardless of their payer. I have United Way funding. I have funding through other sources for some specific geographic regions. But the TAP grant allows us to have this wide focus of geography, and it allows us to have this wide ability to say, regardless of your ability to pay, please come. So this would be a devastating loss to us. The loss for the fourth quarter of FY15 is significant, but to lose all funding for children with autism in the state of Illinois would really be a tragedy. So I look forward to answering your questions after the other speakers. Thank you.
Thank you, Jim. I'd next like to introduce Deborah Vines, the Executive Director of the Answer, Inc., which is a parent support and education network in the Chicago area.
Good afternoon. Again, my name is Deborah Vines, and I'm the Executive Director and founder of the Answer Incorporated Autism Awareness and Support Agency, and this is my son, Jason. He's 27 years old, and he has autism. Since we became a partner with the Autism Program of Illinois, we've been able to expand our services because supportive services to a family that is impacted by autism and developmental disorders is profound. Speaking as a parent, for many years, my husband and I did not have supportive services. Actually, we almost became a separated couple because it was so many challenges that went on within our own family. But since we started the Answer Incorporated, being able to reach these families and give them those supportive services, so many families are staying together and becoming whole. Being able to support their children with the resource center that we opened up because of funding from TAP. Being able to provide first responders trainings to the police departments because a lot of children and adults, they elope, and the police departments don't know how to deal with families, children, and adults with autism. Being able to have a men's group. Men are just very particular, and they don't talk around a lot of people. So we have a men's group that has just been so profound within the families that we service. We have activities for the children. We live in a community that is definitely underserved. Communities of color in Proviso Township have lack of resources. So we have provided that needed resource. We are a small pebble in the sea of a big sand of disabilities, but we service so many families. I can even see the strides in my son from the programs that he's been able to participate in because of the Answer. We have a Saturday University, a tutoring program. My son didn't even know how to write his name. He's 27 years old. Now he can write his name. The things that they are learning just in the Saturday University program, 2 participants are able to go out and get jobs and be productive now, to be a productive citizen. So we just thank you for being a voice for us so that maybe the governor will hear what we're saying, because to lose the TAP funding would just be devastating across the state of Illinois. Thank you.
Thank you, Deborah. The next speaker is Jose Ovalle, who's a parent liaison with the Autism Program. He's also a parent of adult children with autism.
Hello, once again, my name is Jose Ovalle, and I work also for Grupo Salto, which is sort of a side effect of the UIC Family Clinics in the University of Illinois in Chicago. It is a hosted group that presents information resources and services, as well as training for parents of children who have autism, or for families who have, actually the entire family has autism when the child has autism. So we serve siblings, we work with the parents in Spanish. Of course, services and information for the children is given in English, but everything we do is in Spanish, and TAP has been instrumental in many respects. This is one of the the TAP website is one of the very few websites in the United States that offers translation of each one of their tip sheets, and actually we serve a very broad Latino community in Chicago too. What these cuts represent for all this is that Grupo Salto received through TAP a grant to prepare a group of young adults to present a program to public schools on bullying and what being a person with autism represents. Of course, if this was a grant that prompted very many requests from Chicago public schools, and also we have a promoters of health program, mothers who will be trained on autism and visit the homes of others. That was also funded by TAP. Excuse me, finally, taking this grant away will mean to some of the partners that I've worked with, translating some of their literature. For instance, one of the partners serves mainly Head Start children. If this grant gets taken away, they will only serve them and not serve anybody above the age of 3 or 4, because the TAP grant provides them with the services that are needed for children 3 and above. The other friend partner groups, organizations are going to completely close because there is no other way for them to sustain themselves. So the impact of this these cuts are just beyond unbelievable, and many of the families in our communities are barely being informed. The Latino community has just woken up to the idea that TAP is going to be cut in funds, and a lot of our families, the 450 families that we have at Grupo Salto, and many of the families that I've spoken with are waking up to the idea that the services, information, training that they receive through TAP are not going to exist anymore, and that is just creating a wave within the Spanish-speaking media in Chicago. So this is a tragedy in itself, and I will be glad to answer questions once we're done.
And the next speaker is Matthew Miller. He's the primary caretaker of his 3-year-old son, Jackson, and their clients at the TAP Center at SIU Carbondale.
Hi, my son Jackson just turned 3 years old. He was diagnosed last April at the CASD, which is the Center for Autism Spectrum Disorder at SIU Carbondale. They're the only game in town for us. If they are to close, which it sounds imminent at the beginning of the summer, there will be nothing for 200 miles. We'll have to go out of state to get the services he receives at SIU. Just tell you a little bit about him. When he started his first semester, he only met 4 of 24 goals, which doesn't sound like much, but for him it was a huge step. His second semester at SIU, he met 18 of 24 goals, and he was really close on a few more. It's like a night and day difference with this kid. This semester, he started school when he turned 3, so he had a little bit of a rough patch adjusting to school and SIU, the CASD there. And the counselors and therapists at school, at CASD, went to his school. They've talked to all of the therapists involved in his life. They've went above and beyond what we ever expected they would do. They're there for Jackson. They're there for my family. They've talked to my older son, who's had a hard time with this. Just like they said, if someone in your family has autism, everyone has autism. He's had a really hard time with it, and they helped him too. They've helped me. They let me vent to them anytime I need to. I have their emails. I have their phone numbers. Anytime they know something's going on, they're there for us. And if this TAP funding is cut, they're going to close in a few months. They're running on reserves now. They got their layoff notices this week. So we don't know what we'll do. And it's not an issue of insurance because there's nothing here. We'll have to move out of state. I can't say enough good stuff about them. And they're funded by TAP. And it's changed all of our lives, not just Jackson's. It's changed everyone's life. Thank you.
The entire network recognizes the financial straits that Illinois finds itself in at this time. We've been a part of the shared sacrifice in the past. We understand the need for that. However, with the suspension of the grant immediately for this quarter, with the loss of all funding for fiscal year 16, we actually become the sacrifice to help solve this crisis, sacrificing not only the TAP program, but sacrificing services and the futures of those 15,000 that we've served and the 45,000+ children throughout the state which have autism. And we'll take your questions at this time.
So what does this mean for the Springfield area program?
The Springfield program has already taken steps to lay off non-clinical staff. and we are reviewing clinical programs to determine those that may have to be decreased or ended with the change in funding.
How many staff members are being laid off?
Let me think for a minute. 5 are being laid off, and time cuts and salary cuts are being done with 2.
So what's this mean for operations then? Like of the Springfield program, what are they not going to be able to provide?
Well, the non-clinical services are being stopped as a result. So non-clinical services typically provided by TAP centers include the resource rooms, consultations, assistance in making visual tools, visual schedules, and training programs.
So, what's the next step? I mean, do you guys have a game plan going forward? Is it just try to get the money from the governor, or do you have a contingency plan on what you're going to do?
It would be nice to have a significant plan, but certainly when you find out that your funding is being cut effective within hours after notification, it's difficult to find additional funding. There are virtually no grants that you can obtain in a matter of a month.
How much is the total line item for TAP?
The total line item for FY15 was $4.3 million. Yes?
When the appropriation legislation was passed, it was said among leaders or by leaders that the autism programs for children specifically would not be cut. So when you got word that it was, what was your reaction?
Shock and awe. I'm not sure there's another way to describe it.
I do governmental affairs work for our organization besides other duties. And I regularly come into contact with 18 senators and representatives across the center part of the state. I think there was shock and awe amongst them as well, because they had been assured that the autism program was going to be held harmless through the remainder of 15. And so I think there is great, as we've been holding meetings today with legislators from across the state, that's been the consistent message that we've been receiving. And many of them felt betrayed. Many of them felt that they were misinformed.
How much money would you need for fiscal year 16 then in order to keep running?
The autism program routinely has been funded significantly below recommended levels. We would hope that it would be possible to maintain at least level funding. We recognize that may not be possible. We have not attempted to develop a minimal level of services. We believe we're already providing services under what's necessary.
And how much would that be specifically?
Well, as I said, the current FY15 was $4.3 million. So our hope would be to have at least level funding for FY16.
So, say you do have to completely shut down, what is the likelihood that you'll be able to, reopen and restart the project once more revenue becomes available?
At some point, it would probably be likely. But realize we're dealing with a number of specialists, professionals who are staff within the different TAP centers. These are clinicians who are in high demand around the country. So I think it would be unreasonable to believe that they would remain available to come back to TAP on a moment's notice. Yes?
Has anyone from your organization met with the governor or spoken with anyone in the Rauner administration?
We have had representatives of TAP who've met with the budget director, Newting, and with acting secretary Bassi from DHS.
And what came of that?
Our funding for the current fiscal year was cut, and we are not in the budget for FY16.
Okay.
Yes, ma'am.
Are there any long-term plans if for some reason the line item is not restored for FY16? Of how you're going to continue operations, or if you would have to shut down completely?
We do not, as a network, have another source of central funding. Because our network is, in fact, a collaboration, as I mentioned, of programs at 4 universities and 13 nonprofits, each of those individual agencies would have to make decisions about their own individual programs, what they might be able to continue to fund, what they might not, or how they might change. but there would, in all likelihood, not be a network without funding.
I assume you're meeting with legislators this week, or have?
Yes.
How would you characterize those meetings?
The meetings that I've been at and the meetings that I've heard about have all been very positive. The legislators in general have indicated that they recognize the benefit that TAP and our partners provide and the long-term savings that we bring to the state, as well as the improvement in the quality of lives for all of those we serve. So they are supportive. But as you're well aware, being in the State House, the legislature allocates, the executive determines what to spend.
The Rockford program is closing tomorrow, right?
That actually recently changed. The Rockford program is run by Eastern Seals Metropolitan Chicago. That is one of their service areas. And I was informed today that their board of directors is releasing some reserve funding that they have available in order to maintain clinical services. So doing something very similar to what I talked about in Springfield. Clinical but non-clinical services will probably not be continued.
Do you have any numbers on what the long-term impact is for the TAP program, and how much money are you guys saving the state in helping these people now as opposed to helping them down the road?
We don't have specific figures for TAP. There are, however, a number of research studies involving several other states looking at early intensive behavioral intervention for children with autism. And they vary in their findings, but they're pretty much saying, for one thing, $1 invested results in $7 savings, as Governor Rauner mentioned during his budget address. Other studies have said that the savings is approximately $2 million for individual, and the savings come through savings in special education, savings in health care, the ability to live in a more independent manner, and the ability to work and bring in some income, so long-term general welfare savings as well.
Was that ever outright explained to you why you would consider non-essential spending?
I think that was they tried to explain that to the Senate Appropriations Committee meeting. There was a Joint Appropriations Committee meeting earlier this week, and I can only say my understanding of what I heard at that meeting was that DHS looks at core services and non-core services. We did not fall into their core service definition, and they felt that there were alternatives available, that people could go on the waiting list. Or they could get a waiver.
What does that mean to you, going on the waiting list?
Well, a waiting list is exactly that,
That's it.
a waiting list. So it means people who have been receiving services from TAP, if they're put on a waiting list, would not receive services. They would wait until such time as they're told they're now eligible for services, and then they need to try to find them.
But having to wait like that, what does that mean to somebody who...
Well, I think as over there, as Mr. Miller said, there's a backsliding that takes place.
These kids are, if you don't use it, you lose it. If we have to wait 6 months with no therapy, I mean, even in between semester breaks a week, he's like a different kid going in. He's forgot skills. He's rusty on skills. And if we have to wait 6 months to 5 years for that, how much is that going to cost the state? How much is that going to cost everybody? Not just my family. That's what, 48,000 in the state. Yeah, it's a nightmare. Sorry.
Any other questions? Well, again, thank you very much for coming here, talking with us. Everybody you see outside the room here is affiliated with TAP, either as providers, representatives of agencies, or families who are served by TAP. I'm sure any number of them would be happy to speak with you if you'd like. Thank you.